Good afternoon. Welcome to our June Legacy Loop. It's great to see so many of you here, especially those joining us for the first time. Legacy Loop is our monthly space for charities to explore, learn and connect on all things legacy giving. Today's session focuses on a very timely topic, modernising wills and gifts and wills, looking at the Law Commission's draft wills bill and what it could mean to charities. At Make a Will Online, we support charities with the solicitor check will writing service, detailed reporting and supporter engagement tools, all designed to make legacy giving easier and more effective. So I'm going to hand over now to Oliver Asher, who's our head of legal at Make a Will Online, and also Sarah Seddon, one of our charity partners and co-chair of the Legacy in Memory Special Interest Group.
Marie, thank you very much indeed for that kind of introduction, and thank you, Sarah, for joining us today to share your hot take as a well, wearing lots of hats as a charity Gifts and Wills fundraiser and also legacy administrator. Today, we are going to talk about modernising wills law, the draft bill for the new Wills Act, which is being talked about a lot in charity fundraising, gifts and wills circles, but also in the legal circle as a whole. Today, we're going to really look at what it means for charities and for gifts and wills, both fundraising and administration. So just a quick introduction. Marie mentioned Make a Will Online. We're an award-winning service that provides solicitor-checked wills to supporters. My name's Oliver. I'm the founder and head of legal at Make a Will Online. Marie's our charity partner. If you've got any questions after this, don't hesitate to get in touch with either of us about charities, with Marie about the law, or making wills myself. At the end of the day, we are a tech company, and we're keeping a really close eye on things that could affect the way that we help supporters turn their intention to leave a gift into a reality. And there's quite a lot to chew on in this draft legislation that we'll come to. And I'll let Sarah quickly introduce herself.
Hi, thank you, Oliver. My name's Sarah Seddon. I'm head of planned giving at Combat Stress, the Veterans Mental Health Charity. So I not only look after gifts in wills, legacy fundraising, as well as in memory, but also I handle the legal side of gifts. So I'm CICLA qualified and just actually going through my diploma in charity legacy management as well. So thank you.
And also co-chair of the amazing special interest group. So as I always say to people in the Make and Will online community of charities, but also all of our new joiners who aren't, check out the special interest group. There's loads of support and helps and advice and odd events, which are all really wonderful. Now, modernising wills. What's going on? So Law Commission is a body that investigates what's working in the law and maybe what's not working so well. In the last 20 years, they've done 3 reviews on the laws around wills. Nothing has yet turned into any legislation, but they've got further this time than I think they have ever before. And they are laser focused on the Wills Act 1837. Here's the first page. I won't ask you to read it all. But interestingly, this is one of the very first pieces of legislation that Queen Victoria put into law, and it was a rehash of a piece of legislation that Mad King George did even earlier. It is old. This piece of legislation, 1837. I don't know if anyone recognised that handsome fella, top moustache. Otto von Bismarck. It's older than the reunification or the unification of Germany. So it's an old bit of legislation. It's older than this picture, which was painted pre-Meiji Restoration in Japan. And it's older than the American Civil War. So is it time to change? The Law Commission certainly thinks so. Right, before we talk about whether it is, let's do a little recap of what does the Wills Act 1837 actually do? Don't worry, as I said, I'm not going to make you read it all. It says that anyone who's over 18 who's got capacity can make a will. There's a little screenshot of Capacity Vault. Capacity Vault gets a digital snapshot of his supporters' mental capacity, which can stop arguments in the future if needed. It says what's needed for a will to be legal. It's going to be signed in front of two witnesses that see the testator sign it. It's got a bit about marriage, a potentially controversial thing, which the Law Commission definitely got quite excited about. Should marriage revoke a will? Back in 1837, they really thought that it should. When people get married, they assume that they'll inherit everybody from the other side of the family, all of the wealth of their spouse. Is that still relevant? Well, we'll talk about that in a bit. And it also says how you can revoke a will. It sets out the rules for revocation of wills. So it says how you can make a will, who can make a will, and how wills are revoked. We've got this report in now. The Law Commission, they published it along with the Draft Act. A lot of people have read the Draft Act. There's a lot of analysis on the internet, on LinkedIn, all over the place. I've chucked in my 2 pence, I know. But what's the point? Is it worth worrying about this yet? So let's scan the horizon. I'm going to say that we are quite a long way away from there being any new laws. There's nothing scheduled for the current parliamentary session, but it could be addressed in the future. What's going to happen is the law is going to go in for pre-legislative scrutiny before being introduced to the House of Commons. Now, once something goes into House Commons, it gets 2 full readings, and then it goes through a committee stage, and then it goes through a report, and then it comes in for a 3rd reading. That alone can kibosh a piece of legislation unless the government wants it to go through. That's a picture of the House of Commons there. Often looks like this when reports like this are being read, but things still get done. Once the House of Commons has done it, then goes to the House of Lords. The Ermine get involved. There will be similar multiple readings, and then they're going to bat it back to the House of Commons. And here's a more realistic image of the House of Lords. They can bat the legislation back to the House of Commons. They can bat it back. They can bat it back, and we play parliamentary ping pong until it's eventually approved by the Commons. That's not the end of it. Then has to get royal assent. So signed by King Prince Charles. That's not the end of it. It has to then go through commencement, implementation, statutory updates. It's a long way away. So don't start rewriting your handbook. We don't need it yet. It's there's a lot of water to pass under the bridge between then and now. So that is where we are at the moment. We have a draft report. Don't panic, but let's have a look at what it says. During this next session, part of the session, we're going to look at some aspects of the Wills Act. And then I'm going to ask for a bit of audience engagement. We're going to run some polls, and Marie's going to chuck them up at the relevant part. Once we've had the polls, I'm going to have a chat with Sarah to get a representative hot take. But please do use the chat. If you can't get to the chat for some reason, raise a hand, and want to have an engaging session with a little bit of feedback of what you think works, what won't. So not going to dwell too long on this. I'm going to come back to in a minute. It repeals the Wills Act 1837. I'm going to shed a tear. It's one of the oldest bits of legislation which is still being used. I've worked with it a lot, but all things must change. I want to say one of the changes in this legislation. It is going to say, if it passes in its current form, anyone over 16 who has capacity to make a will can make one. Or if somebody's under 16, they can make a will if the court allows it. That is a fairly major change in the law. And I'm going to put a question to the room. Does this change in the law presents an opportunity for charities, or does it present a risk to charities? Marie, could you fire up that first poll, please, or do you need me to stop sharing?
I just need 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Just
Okay.
need to.
Not a problem at all. So if anyone's got any questions in the chat, and maybe we can have a take from Sarah and your capacity as co-chair of the SIG and also in your professional capacity. What do
Oh, I
you
think
think
it's
that
an
Wills for
interesting
Children?
one. I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I wonder, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I wonder for certain charities, is this an opportunity? Charities that engage with younger, passionate supporters, we know that the generation coming through quite often have strong views, it might be on the environment or particular causes that matter to them. So I wonder, in a way, would they benefit from this act, or is it something? Certainly, the age change. I wonder, does it lead on to bigger things? Is it that voting would possibly change? But it's not really for this discussion. So is it sort of the start of enabling younger people to take more responsibilities? Yes, so because somebody's saying there about them, they're a charity college, students 18 plus. Interesting that they probably wouldn't be. I'm not sure. Maybe there are other charities, people that might drop in the chat if they think their charities would benefit and why. For our charity, I can't see it because in order to serve on a front line, you have to be 18 plus. You do get some people that come through will join military organisations at 16. As you know, you can join at 16. But I'm not sure. I think most people at 16 feel invincible. Happy to be proven.
I think until you're well into your 30s, then suddenly your knees start playing up, and that's that. So questions or comments in the chat. Shirani said, are there specific conditions for 16 and 17-year-olds? No, it's going to be the same as for everyone under 16-year-olds, so 15 and under. There will be the need for a court to agree that it's a good idea. Maisie said you're a university college, so not likely yet true. But Joseph says there's an opportunity for people who support young people with cancer. Exactly. And I think it will lend a sense of empowerment and control to scary situations for young people who don't feel like they have control at the time. It might not have a huge impact on legacy giving, and Susan said an adult hospice, so wouldn't have a impact on legacy giving. But I think it will help a lot of young people who have terminal diagnoses or other bad news, just to feel like they've got that small part of control. So I think from a are we ready, Marie, to get the poll up? Let's do that and see what the room says.
Okay. That's the first one.
So we're coming in 35 out of 43. Last few. It's already a toss up between opportunity and neutral. Any thoughts on that, Sarah?
Well, I think people in the chat have made some really interesting points actually I hadn't thought about because of the nature of the charity that I work for. Somebody was talking about foundation for schools. Well, again, it's a chance to empower that next generation to understand the power that they have when they write their wills. So I think that's interesting. And also Rachel has said about YMCA, who do a brilliant job, as do all charities, but when it comes talking about homeless young people, there is something inherently wrong to see young people homeless or see anybody homeless. So she has, there is that opportunity for them maybe to frame that messaging in a way of it's almost like campaigning that this is something is inherently wrong, and that they have that power to make a difference. So I think it's an opportunity that we can help the next generation, or maybe further down, understand the difference that gifts and wills make, and that it maybe gets them thinking more. So just
An excellent point from Sarah, who was talking about educating young people about responsibility, wills, finances, and Rebecca said also kind of many years of stewardship, encouraging young people to grow in their life with the charity. Really good points. And also people who aren't directly affected but know people. So if a relative or friend's been cared for particularly well, the younger person might feel very strongly. Exactly. I'm going to end this poll now. Move on to the next. Move on to the next one. Thank you to everyone who's voted. There we go. It was mainly neutral as to whether that would affect the charity, but it's a point for thought. So thank you. Now for the next legal point. Um, Currently, the rules on capacity have evolved since 1837 with some really well-known and much loved case law. The favourite being the rather sad case of a gentleman who thought he was being persecuted through his life by a mystery villain called Featherstone Alexander. Now, Featherstone Alexander got Mr. Banks and oh no, sorry, Mr. Goodfellow and ruined everything that he ever tried to do. Featherstone Alexander didn't exist, and poor Mr. Goodfellow spent a lot of time seeking help to banish these hallucinations. And when he died, he left a will, and someone didn't like what was in it, so they challenged it. Banks and Goodfellow, and in Banks and Goodfellow, they found that someone needs to know what's the effect of signing a will is, um, what's in their estate. They need to understand what's in their estate. They need to understand who might expect to inherit. And if you're not mentioning someone, why? And finally, very Victorian language, must have no insane delusional disorder of the mind that poisons their affection towards others. A certain relish to that. They want to get rid of all that case law and implement a similar test to that of the Mental Capacity Act 2005. What Mental Capacity Act 2005 means you need to be able to understand, comprehend, recall, and then act upon the information given to you. And it can be a much more involved test, but it also will create clarity across sectors, so from LPAs through to wills, as to what's mental capacity, what people mean by mental capacity and testamentary capacity. Let's do it slightly the other way around now. Is Marie able to launch a poll around whether a change in the rules around mental capacity and making wills is likely to present an opportunity for charities or a risk to charities? Cool.
Okay, mental capacity. There we go. I've launched that one.
Thank you, Marie. Now, I don't know if everybody else who's not a host can see the polls developing, but it is interesting to see what's going on. I won't mention what's actually happening. I think I did on the last one, which might have skewed the poll slightly. Bad polling behaviour. Sorry. Don't tell anyone at YouGov. So we're up to about 70%. And just reading the rest of the chat. Okay. Last few seconds, 76. The straggling 14%. Speak now. So I'm going to close the poll at 78% and show you what was in there. Sarah, what's your take on that around mental capacity and the work that you do either as a fundraiser or as a legacy administrator?
So on the legacy administration side, I would say I think this is a good thing in terms of it helps bring clarity to situations. So for anybody where we've had instances where we've been mentioned in a will and we've had the family have been unhappy and they have raised the issue of mental capacity of their relative. And I think to have that clarity means that it's not pitting charities against maybe disgruntled family, because the law will bring clarity to it. And personally, I think it's a good thing that we're going to have that. Reliant on things that are so distant is not always the best solution. So I think in that regard it helps. Just making sure that when supporters are writing their wills, we're comfortable as well. We've got a moral and ethical duty to make sure that anybody that kindly writes our charities into their wills, that we are comfortable that everything is in place, that it is morally and ethically what that supporter wanted. So I think it's a good thing.
Thank you. So there was 15% thought it was an opportunity for charities to have this Mental Capacity Act being the testamentary capacity. Stick in the chat what you think whether you think in your day to day you'll see benefits, and also those who the 36%, more than double that, who think that it could be a risk, changing that to be a risk. Just whilst I do that, I'll circle back to a really important point when it comes to wills and challenges to wills. Now, I'm not a contentious practitioner. I'm an estate planning solicitor, and I help people make their wills. And if there's dispute, I refer that out to maybe the IDR charity claims checker or one of the other triage services for charities that are available. If somebody dies if this law is passed, it will still be possible for the family to challenge the will on the basis of lack of testamentary capacity. And then it will become a question of evidence. Is there evidence that shows that the supporter may have lacked capacity? And if there is evidence that they lack capacity, then the beneficiaries will have to, well, the executors really will have to show that they did have capacity, and that can still involve retrospective capacity reports and so on. There's not good evidence at the time. Again, second shout out to Capacity Vault. Having good evidence of capacity, either with a solicitor note at the meeting where they took instructions in signing, or by using a third-party service, of which Capacity Vault is one. You get evidence of their capacity at the time they make the will. So Ryan has come in and said that she agrees with Sarah, greater clarity about mental capacity is good. And I think that if people are doing other things whilst they're putting their affairs in order, such as getting LPAs in place and they had capacity for that, or other questions around their medical capacity to consent to things, if it's all the same test, each decision is taken on its facts at the time that the decision was made, but you may well have a better picture than having a different test of Banks and Goodfellow for wills. Anything else to add to the point of mental capacity?
One thing I would say, just a very quick, and it's slightly sort of steering away from this. This is also where it's very important for charities to be able, it helps a lot if you're able to show prior contact. So it's well worth remembering that, being able to show that, Mrs. Goggins had supported you for a number of years, or had sent, £10 at Christmas or something. Again, it's not particularly linked to the mental capacity, but again, it helps with charities to be able to show that that relationship is there.
Really good point. Yeah. Now, here's a biggie. In the suggested draft bill, wills can be made, revoked, reinstated if the necessary formalities are met. That's going to mean signing in front of witnesses or digital signatures, which we'll come to in a minute. But here's a curveball. The courts are going to have discretion to deem a will valid, even if it's not been signed in accordance with the formalities, if the courts are happy that the testator, the supporter, demonstrated testamentary intentions. So you need to get your will signed in front of two witnesses that see you sign it, unless the court agrees otherwise. Now, this could have quite far-reaching implications, both good and bad for charities. But just as a first take, as a hot take, do you think this offers an opportunity for charities or a risk for charities?
Is that the digital execution poll?
No, it's the
Which one?
courts. It's the court discretion.
So we've got two for court discretion. We've got one that says the will's validly executed.
Mhm.
Let's have a look. Sorry, so court discretion to deem wills valid / revoked. Is it that one?
Let's do that one. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Is that up on if that's not loading, maybe try the other one.
Right, that should be there.
Ah, super. So, court discretion to deem wills valid or revoked. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Circle back to that comment in the chat. So we've got 65%. Let's get a few more clicks and then we can close the poll and talk about it. Yes, 68%. Thank you. Thank you, Marcia. Yeah. Okay. Weighing up the options. Any more clicks? 3, 2, 1. We're ending the poll. So, Sarah, what do you think of that?
Well, actually, I think Rachel has put it very succinctly. There is that element of the risk to the charities in the sense of if somebody has drafted a will, they've thought about it, maybe they're still thinking about it. They might have got somebody to sign, or they weren't 100% sure, and then the will is found later. I sort of understand why they've looked to do it, in that sometimes people have thought they've completed their wills correctly and haven't. But at the same time, we've been subject to a couple of times with no win, no fee companies where, as a charity, we don't want bad publicity. We want to ensure things are fair. But when it's been quite clear that maybe this isn't what the person who has supported us has meant, it does pose a risk. And I think I can understand why they've put it in, but I can see its potential for issues further down the line. That's what concerns me. And if the law isn't clear, if it is this very grey area, we know that there's always opportunities for people or for the systems to be abused. The reason why the law is normally so very clear about witnessing wills is to protect the intentions of the person writing the will. And that does concern me, that we could see issues down the line on this one. And I wonder if this one needs more work, this particular element. I wonder if it will go through.
Yeah, I I agree. I think that to an extent, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate in just a sec. But the where there is uncertainty, um, claims will fill the voids, and there could be a risk. There could also be more duties on charities and potential more potential income if you know someone's a pledger and they've been a pledger multiple times, and you've been notified and they've got a will that's been made up, but they haven't executed it properly, but it's perfectly obvious that they wanted to. The courts can find that valid, so that could be very good for charities, especially bearing in mind the data that you hold on supporters who want to give, and it allows you to be custodian of their intentions and their vision for what should happen to the future of their estates. But does that then mean you have a duty to litigate if you are aware of a pledge that doesn't find its way or isn't incorrectly executed? Because that could be quite a burden at the same time, because you have your Charities Act obligations to ensure income for the charity is properly
And I think most
properly received.
charities be very cautious about instigating legal proceedings on something like this, because it could look, nobody wants to read bad publicity about our charities. And you could see how it could be framed. Charity pursues, my, great aunt Maud had changed her mind, and now that charity X is hounding us.
I think that in certain red top publications, if you didn't, you'd be also pilloried for not looking after the wishes of Great Aunt Maud. So I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But yeah, reputation management is very important, but doesn't override your legal duties as an officer of the charity under the Charities Act. So in general, I think it's a risk. Really useful to see that in black and white. Thank you. And just anything for anybody who thought it was an opportunity, hand up or stick it in the chat. If not, we'll move swiftly on to the next point. I'm going to circle back to this poll in a minute because there's a point about revocation which we're going to come to on the next page, and I'm just going to try and remember 67% anti. The next point that the legislation is wanting to address is around undue influence. Undue influence is where, the traditional scenario of someone being threatened or forced or just being lent on very hard to do something in their will. And it happens sadly quite a lot in the courts. I think lack of capacity is the most quoted claim when it comes to challenging a will, followed by provision for family dependence. But undue influence is up there. It's the EastEnders storyline of someone being lent on hard to leave their estates to somebody. Now, at the moment, if there's a suspicion of undue influence, that has to be shown on the balance of probabilities to be true. So, Great Aunt Maud was being isolated from friends and family by that cousin Bertie, and then she left everything to him. If you can show on the balance of probabilities that she was unduly influenced or fraudulent calumny, where you say bad things about other family members, then the people making the claim have to. The suggestion in the Act is that if there's grounds to suspect, then the suspicion will hold unless the contrary is provided. So you're flipping the burden of proof. Suddenly, instead of just saying, no, I was just going to visit Great Aunt Maud, Bertie has to then prove that he wasn't doing anything that he shouldn't have been. What does that mean? Is that an opportunity to charities, or could that present a risk to charities? Marie, have you got that poll?
I've just launched that one on influence.
So let's have
Okay.
30 seconds on this and see how it develops.
Just a time check, Oliver, as well.
We've got 10 more minutes, I think, until the right, 15 more seconds. Come on, let's get 75%. We're up to 60. A few more clicks. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, Sarah, what do you think of that? You
Interesting, isn't it? Most people have put that they think it's a risk for charities. Um, I, I think it's quite nuanced in a way. We have seen, and I think we're not unusual in that a lot of charities will have supporters supported their work for many, many years, and then maybe, as you say, they get slightly more frail. And this is not a case I'm talking about. This is a situation.
names have been
That
changed to protect the
exactly,
parties.
yes,
Yeah.
that maybe a niece, nephew, a neighbor has used undue influence. Does it help the charity? I mean, if anything, I would say probably it would, because maybe she had us in her will or had a charity in her will. This will then has been, because of this undue influence, has been changed. Like most charities, and as Rachel's flagged as well, we're very cautious in that would be the discussion would be between the executors and the person that is being accused of undue influence. Charities, I can't see, will want to get pulled into a situation like that because of, obviously we will have a vested interest if our charity was, say, written out of a will. But in terms of publicity, in terms of who is responsible, we'll always be aware, we'll always want to be kept updated. But I think, like most charities, we would expect that discussion between the executors and the person accused of undue influence. So I think it's a risk if undue influence has occurred, but I don't think this act, hopefully it will bring more clarity. So sorry, that's a bit of a woolly answer, but I do think it's not a.
Bear in mind that almost certainly in almost all the cases, the executor is also going to be the beneficiary, is also going to be the person that's being accused of undue influence. So it might be incumbent on other beneficiaries to lodge a caveat or
Yes.
challenge the validity of a will. And I think that you touched on the potential, and it's in the chat as well.
Yes.
The families may claim that the charity unduly influenced, especially if they're leaving an entire estate to a charity, if they didn't want to leave it to more distant relatives. So then, if there's evidence, it'll be incumbent on the charity to prove that that did not happen. So the record keeping, attendance notes, it comes wherever there's a claim, it comes down to the evidence on the day. So again, the really great data that charities are gathering more and more over time,
yes,
do a lot to help. But yeah, maybe something to pass up the CIOF because of the potential reputational risks for charities if there are more claims.
There are a lot of advice provided by the CIOF and the ILM and lots of great bodies about the clarity when you're visiting a supporter that you put in writing. They have requested it. It's to discuss. That you take more than one. So I think as all of us try to be very ethical and moral, and to be able to show all of that chain will help mitigate that risk. But
Yes.
Rachel's right to flag it.
Cover your anterior. Right, we've got less than 5 minutes left. So I'm going to trot through one of the more emotional ones. The Wills Act 1837 was the law that put in the revocation on marriage. Queen Victoria's first act would say that tended to be to protect the ladies in relationships who would have traditionally been younger and have had less wealth. That is being repealed and it's not being replaced in this act. What do charities see the revocation of this part of the act to be an opportunity or a threat? I should have said repeal, not revocation. Got revocation on the mind. Okay, we can give this 30 seconds, so just over 51%. If you can't make up your mind, toss a coin or stick it in neutral. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. It's in generally as an opportunity, Sarah. Any thoughts?
I think it's actually I think in terms of what's right, I think actually it's a good point. A lot of people aren't aware that when they marry that or I think it's also form a civil partnership as well. I think that's included in this. But I think a lot of people aren't aware, so it would be disappointing if they felt their will was still valid. Beyond that, I'm not exactly sure that it's either or for charities. To me, I think it's quite neutral, but maybe others might have a different perspective on that.
So I remember being at a very interesting SIG event with I think it was Matthew Lagden talking about it being potentially very good for a charity because it means that on marriage, especially with older people getting married older in age, those gifts to their favourite charities won't be accidentally revoked.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you. Now, we touched on this before, but also the revocation elements. So a court can find a will has been revoked. Joseph asked a very good question about whether in the chat about whether a will can be reinstated if the newer will was found to be invalid. And in lots of cases it can. In certain others, it doesn't. Marriage is a really confusing lacuna, but that's no longer going to be an issue. The previous will won't necessarily come back into force if a will is revoked on marriage because of a complex legal point which a barrister should probably explain rather than myself. There's a lot in the draft act about barring an entail. I'm going to be absolutely honest, and I'd say I have no idea what that means. I went back to my textbooks, my uni textbooks, and practitioner guides. I read it. I still don't understand what it means. So moving swiftly on. The final point which I want to really address today is going to be digital signatures or digital wills. Now, what the court has said is that a testator can execute a will by using a reliable system, and that reliable system is going to be decided by the Secretary of State from time to time by a statutory instrument. So the Secretary of State will be able to say, yeah, blockchain, e-signatures, and they'll be able to change the rules as the technology evolves. Do you think that presents an opportunity to charities or a risk? Right. Okay. So let's have a few more seconds. Oh, everyone's answered. End poll. Right. There we go. Opportunity. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. So we're on time. What do you think of that as an opportunity?
I think it is an opportunity. Electronic wills are here to stay. That is a fact. It's a way for charities to be able to engage with supporters to remove a barrier for those that want to support our work. I think having clarity around electronic wills, online wills, I think is really it's really key. It means that everybody is very comfortable. We know that there's a reliable system for ensuring that the will is valid. I know that they talk about the ways that they're going to witness the wills. They're going to bring clarity to that as well, checking that they're authentic. You know, this is here. We need to make sure that it works the best way it possibly can, in the most, let's say, where there's just complete clarity around them. So to me, I think this is brilliant, because I think it just makes it's another tool for people to support the work of charities, to write their wills, which are so important. So I think it's a positive, and I think that it will be useful as well for people like you, Oliver, where you can say, yes, we meet these are the requirements, and yes, we confirm we meet this, and this requirement as stated in law. And yeah, I think it's a great thing, and I was really pleased to see this is being discussed.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely, the world is changing, and the laws need to change to keep up. I'm just going to throw in a little I don't know, spoiler, not spoiler, thing to kind of ruin the rosy horizon. I don't like it when laws are made by statutory instrument. I think there's too much discretion on what a signature is, and we've seen a lot of lawmaking by statutory instrument recently. Anyone remember signature remote signing during COVID? Now, I was for the idea of remote signing, but when the statutory instrument came out, I actually started one of the petitions at Parliament .gov.uk to get remote signing for vulnerable people, and that became law through a statutory instrument. It was very awkward, messy, and is leading to more litigation. I'd be worried if there are changing goalposts about what is and what isn't valid, depending on the Secretary of State's whim. That could cause more trouble than it starts. So we need more guardrails so that we know what we're working within, and there can be a source of truth to say this will be, and it will be for a long time. Because if it's okay in 2025 but not okay in 2027, lots of people are going to get confused, incorrectly execute their will, and then they're going to have to go to the courts, who's then going to have to implement their discretion, and it's cost. So we are at time. Not going to talk about gifts to non-charitable bodies because we're in a room full of charities. I would like to wrap up just to say that we're a long way away from this. It's not perfect in its current form. Anyone can write a letter to their MP, and maybe there are points here which should be considered in the CIOF, in the fundraising regulator, just to make sure that charities are adequately protected, and those should go through the correct channels. Any thoughts, final thoughts, Sarah?
I do think, reliant on a Wills Act from 1837, as you very aptly showed, Oliver, life has moved on and we do need more clarity. There's always a nervousness around any change because those lot of unintended consequences can happen. But I think if we get behind this, if we're able to flag our concerns, that maybe that will help with clarity about making sure that this works for everybody. So actually, you know, it's going to happen. So let's see what we can do to make the best of it. I think it's going to happen.
Well, yeah, well, exactly. It may do. So stay tuned for more updates. Thank you everybody for coming. Welcome back to everybody who we see at the monthly Legacy Loops, and welcome to everyone that we didn't. And thank you for making time. I'll hand over to Marie for some closing admin. But if you've got any questions about what you've seen today, don't hesitate to get in touch with myself or Marie. All the very best. Cheers.
Thank you, Oliver and Sarah. That was a great session. Thanks for everybody's contributions in the polls and all the questions. If anybody does want to find out more about how we help charities receive gifts and wills, and also Legacy Loop, then just get in touch with me. And for all our charity partners that are on the webinar, if you need any help or guidance or want to have a catch-up meeting, or you've got new members of staff joining, then just get in touch and we will schedule some time for you. Okay, thank you everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Superb. Cheers,
Bye.
folks.